Imagine a countdown. A clock that starts ticking in the Middle East, but ends with the total collapse of the American economy. You might think the United States is insulated from foreign chaos. You might believe the military is too strong, the economy too resilient, the domestic oil production too vast to fail. You would be wrong. There is a single geographical choke point on planet Earth that holds the power to shatter modern civilization in exactly 90 days. It is not a massive land border. It is a narrow curve of water, just 33 kilometers wide at its tightest point, the Strait of Hormuz. Most people look at this passage and just see a transit route for ships, but military strategists and global economists see something far more terrifying. They see a trap, a macroeconomic contagion mechanism designed to bypass armies and go straight for the throat of global supply chains. This is not a theory. This is the anatomy of a systemic global shutdown. And the weapon of choice is not a nuclear bomb. It is energy starvation. To understand the sheer scale of this vulnerability, you have to look at the water. Every single day, 21 million barrels of oil slide through the Strait of Hormuz. That is roughly 20% of the entire world's daily oil consumption. 1 out of every 3 barrels of oil traveling by sea anywhere on Earth squeezes through this one tiny bottleneck. But it is not just crude oil. It is the massive corridor for liquefied natural gas that heats homes across Europe. It is the refined petroleum products that power electric plants in Asia. For decades, this passage has been the beating heart of the global economy, and Iran holds a blade right over it. The most chilling part is that Iran does not need to drag a massive chain across the water to close it. A full military blockade is incredibly difficult and unnecessary. Asymmetric warfare relies on speed, surprise, and fear. A few sea mines dropped in the dark, a handful of drone strikes on passing tankers, anti-ship missiles locked on targets from the coastline. That is all it takes to trigger a global panic. Before a single drop of oil is even physically lost, the fear of losing it paralyzes the market. Insurance companies panic, and shipping premiums skyrocket instantly. The cost to move oil jumps tenfold. Shipping companies refuse to send their multi-million-dollar vessels into a war zone. The boats simply stop arriving, and the global economic heart stops beating. If you live in the United States or Europe, you might feel safe. You might look at the data and see that the primary buyers of this specific oil are Asian nations like China, India, and Japan. It is deeply intuitive to think that if the tap gets turned off for Asia, it is simply not your problem. But energy economics does not care about intuition. The world oil market is a single massive global pool. Oil is a fungible commodity. A barrel from the Middle East is economically interchangeable with a barrel from Texas or the North Sea. When the Strait of Hormuz shuts down, Japan and China do not just close their factories and accept defeat. They panic. They immediately turn to the other suppliers. They start fiercely bidding on the exact same oil that was supposed to go to London or New York. Desperation drives the price up for everyone, everywhere. A disruption in the Middle East equals an immediate, punishing price hike at every single gas pump in the world. You cannot isolate yourself. If the pool level drops, everyone drowns together. The moment the strait closes, a 90-day countdown to American bankruptcy begins. It is a brutal, unforgiving mathematical equation. The United States consumes an average of 20.5 million barrels of oil every single day. Domestic production sits at roughly 11.9 million barrels. That creates a massive, systematic deficit of 8.6 million barrels every single day. The nation's emergency buffer is the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. It holds roughly 371 million barrels. Under the strain of a global supply collapse, that reserve will bleed dry in exactly 83 days.
The timeline of destruction is exact. Day 1 of the closure triggers panic buying, and gasoline jumps from $3.50 to $7 overnight. By day 14, refineries face critical feedstock shortages, and the price hits $12 a gallon. By day 30, the price reaches $15. But this is not just about expensive commutes. This is cost-push inflation, a supply-side shock where the basic input for modern life becomes mathematically unaffordable. Oil is the blood of the supply chain. Jet fuel reserves support commercial aviation for just 26 days. Diesel fuel inventories maintain the trucking industry for only 22 days. Heating oil reserves for the freezing northeastern United States total just 47 days. Watch the collapse of the American system in real time. By day 7, trucking companies reduce their routes, creating initial inventory shortages at local retail centers. By day 21, the just-in-time delivery networks fail completely, leaving store shelves empty and factories without parts. By day 35, regional supply chains disintegrate because long-distance transportation is economically impossible. Essential goods vanish. By day 83, gasoline is virtually unavailable at any price. The emergency reserves are gone. The trucking industry is dead. The American economy flatlines. But the nightmare does not end at the gas pump. There is a secondary crisis hiding just beneath the surface, one that is far more lethal. The Strait of Hormuz is not just an energy corridor. It is one of the most critical agricultural choke points on Earth. Every single month, approximately 1.3 million tons of fertilizer travel through this exact same stretch of water. Modern human survival is entirely dependent on industrial agriculture, and industrial agriculture relies heavily on nitrogen-based fertilizers. Natural gas is broken down to extract hydrogen, which is combined with nitrogen from the atmosphere to create the ammonia and urea that farmers apply to their soil. Nearly 1/3 of the entire global nitrogen fertilizer trade passes through the strait. If the ships stop, the fertilizer supply chain tightens immediately. Roughly 4 billion people on this planet consume food grown with synthetic nitrogen fertilizers. Half of the global population is tethered to the chemical nutrients flowing out of the Persian Gulf. If a disruption lasts even 30 days, it creates catastrophic shortages that ripple across global agriculture for months and months to come. Farmers face a brutal choice. As fertilizer prices explode, they are forced to use less of it. Lower fertilizer use guarantees lower crop yields. At the exact same time, skyrocketing diesel prices mean farmers cannot even afford to fuel the tractors required to plant or harvest the crops that did manage to grow. The global food system breaks from both ends simultaneously. Harvests fail. Transportation costs surge. Food prices do not just rise, they violently detach from reality. Energy accounts for nearly half the cost of producing food. When energy becomes a luxury, food becomes a luxury. Empty supermarket shelves are frightening, but fully stocked shelves with unaffordable food are deadly. Billions of people would be pushed toward starvation. It would trigger the third and most devastating shock to global food security in less than a decade. We live in a deeply interconnected machine, a machine built on the blind assumption that the energy will always flow. Countries like India and Brazil depend heavily on Gulf-sourced fertilizer to grow the world's crops. Gulf states themselves import up to 90% of their own food, relying on the very shipping routes that would be paralyzed. Everything is tied together. A disruption does not stay contained. Automobile manufacturing in Japan collapses. Chinese exports to the United States plummet by over 70%. The European Union faces a massive, crushing recession. And the United States faces a cascading banking crisis. Unemployed citizens default on auto loans. Homeowners default on mortgages because they cannot afford both food and heating fuel. Corporate bonds fail. The international trade system begins aggressively moving away from the United States dollar, recognizing the profound vulnerability of a superpower brought to its knees by energy starvation. The technological sector goes dark as energy-intensive semiconductor production becomes prohibitively expensive.
Internet servers and communication infrastructures face rolling power shortages. You cannot drill your way out of this in 90 days. It takes years to develop new oil fields or build massive pipelines. You cannot fix inelastic supply with a military strike. Aircraft carriers cannot refine gasoline. Stealth bombers cannot harvest wheat. Military superiority is entirely irrelevant when the essential commodities required to run a civilization simply do not exist. The strategic reserves will not save you. This is the ultimate asymmetric victory. Geography defeats technology. Iran knows that the vulnerability of the modern world is not in its armies, but in its absolute unyielding dependence on a continuous flow of cheap energy. By controlling a 33-kilometer stretch of water, they control the global thermostat. They control the price of bread. They control the heartbeat of the global economy. If the Strait of Hormuz closes, the countdown begins. The math is already written. The trap is already set. And the world is completely blind to it. How many days could your city survive if the oil stopped flowing tomorrow? Let us know your thoughts below. For more hidden geopolitical truths, subscribe to The Silent Borders.